After I grew too early, something changed inside me. It was not loud. It was not visible to everyone. No one saw a dramatic moment. No one heard me announce it. But deep inside my heart, a decision was forming. A child can only feel helpless for so long before he begins to make promises to himself. Some promises come from hope. Some promises come from dreams. But mine came from pain. In episode 8 of my life, I had already started becoming older than my age. I had learned to wake up early. I had learned to read people's moods. I had learned to hide my tears. I had learned to say I was fine, even when I was not. I had learned that in another person's house, peace was not guaranteed. I had learned that being useful could sometimes protect me from humiliation. But learning to survive did not heal me. It only made me quieter. And the quieter I became, the more my thoughts grew louder inside me. One thought returned again and again. I cannot live like this forever. At first, it was only a whisper. Then it became a sentence. Then it became a promise. I told myself that one day I would become strong. Strong enough not to depend on people who made me feel small. Strong enough not to wait for someone who had already stayed away too long. Strong enough not to be moved from one house to another, like a burden. Strong enough to stand where no one could look at me with pity. That promise became my secret. No one knew how often I repeated it. No one knew how much it carried me. No one knew that behind my silence, I was building something invisible. A future, a different life, a version of myself that would not be easily broken. I had seen what weakness looked like in the eyes of people who did not love you. Not true weakness. Not the natural weakness of a child, but the weakness of being dependent on someone who uses help as power. I hated that feeling. I hated needing permission to feel safe. I hated being careful in a place where I should have been free. I hated swallowing words because I had nowhere else to go. I hated watching my brother become angry and knowing his anger made sense. I hated thinking about my mother's tiredness and feeling powerless to help her. And more than anything, I hated asking where my father was and receiving only silence. So I made a promise. One day, I would not need him. That was the first version of the promise. It sounded strong. It sounded clean. It sounded like freedom. One day, I would not need my father. I repeated it when I was hurt. I repeated it when I was tired. I repeated it when someone reminded me to be grateful. I repeated it when I saw other children with their fathers. I repeated it when my heart betrayed me by still wanting him. One day, I would not need him. But the truth is, that promise was not born from strength alone. It was born from heartbreak. Because only someone who still needs love has to promise himself he does not need it. If I truly did not need him, I would not have repeated it so much. But I was still a child, and no matter how strong I tried to sound inside, a child still wants a father. A child still wants protection. A child still wants to be chosen. A child still wants someone to look at him and say, "You are mine, and I will not leave you." I wanted that, but wanting it made me feel weak, so I turned the desire into a vow. I would become strong. I would become useful. I would become respected. I would become someone people could not treat like a burden. I would build a life so solid that no one could move me again. That promise did not come with a plan at first. It was only emotion. A fire inside my chest. A fire made from shame, anger, longing, and fear. But even a painful fire can give light. That promise began to guide me. I started paying attention differently. I watched people who had power. I watched people who were respected. I watched people who walked into rooms without fear. I watched people whose words made others listen. I wondered what made them different. Was it money? Was it education? Was it confidence? Was it family? Was it the protection of a father? I did not know, but I knew I wanted to become someone who could stand. Not someone arrogant, not someone cruel, not someone who used power the way others had used it against me. I wanted to become someone no one could easily crush, because I had already learned what it felt like to be small in the hands of others. The house of other people had taught me that lesson. The hands that hurt had taught me that lesson. My brother's anger had taught me that lesson. My mother's tiredness had taught me that lesson. My father's absence had taught me that lesson. So I promised myself I would rise. But rising was not easy when I was still a child under another roof. Every day reminded me that I was not yet free. I still had chores. I still had rules. I still had to be careful. I still had to answer respectfully, even when my heart was burning. I still had to lower my head when I wanted to defend myself. I still had to say thank you when gratitude felt mixed with pain. But now, something was different. Before, I endured because I had no choice. Now I endured because I had a future in my mind. That future became my hiding place. When someone spoke harshly, I told myself, this is not forever. When I felt humiliated, I told myself, one day they will see. When I felt alone, I told myself, I will build my own place. When I missed my father, I told myself, I will become the man I needed. Those sentences became my shelter. They did not erase the pain, but they kept the pain from swallowing me completely. Sometimes I imagined the life I would build. I did not yet see everything clearly, but I saw pieces. I saw a place where I belonged. I saw a home where no child would be treated like a burden. I saw a table where no one would be reminded every day that they were being helped. I saw walls that did not carry fear. I saw doors that opened without conditions. And somewhere beyond that, I saw something greater, a building, a structure, an edifice. I did not know why that image came to me so often. Maybe because I had lived under roofs that did not feel like home. Maybe because I wanted to build something that would not reject me. Maybe because I wanted proof that my life could become solid. Maybe because my heart needed a symbol bigger than pain. The edifice was not yet a real project. It was only a dream. But it stood in my imagination like a promise made of stone. One day, I would build something. One day, people would look at it and know I had not been defeated. One day, my story would not be only about abandonment. One day, my life would stand tall. That dream comforted me. But it also carried bitterness, because part of me wanted my father to see it. I wanted him to see what I became without him. I wanted him to feel regret. I wanted him to understand that the child he left had grown. I wanted him to know that his absence had not destroyed me. But deep inside, another truth was hiding. I did not only want him to see my success, I wanted him to be proud of me. That was the part I did not want to admit. Even in my anger, I still wanted his pride. Even while promising not to need him, I still imagined his eyes looking at me with respect. That made me angry at myself. I wondered why the heart can still desire love from someone who caused so much pain. I wondered why I could not simply erase him. My brother seemed able to do it, or at least he seemed determined to. He had already decided that our father did not deserve a place in our future. But I was different. I was angry, yes. I blamed him, yes. I wanted to become strong without him, yes. But I still wanted to know him. That contradiction lived inside me. And because I did not know how to solve it, I worked harder. Pain became fuel, anger became discipline, loneliness became imagination. The promise became my invisible companion. I carried it when I was sent to do tasks. I carried it when I watched other children play freely. I carried it when adults praised my maturity without understanding its cost. I carried it when my brother spoke with anger. I carried it when I thought of my mother and wished I could remove all the burdens from her shoulders. I carried it when night came and I lay awake, thinking about the future. I told myself, I will not remain here. I will not remain small. I will not remain dependent. I will not remain the child people pity. I will not remain the child whose story ends with a father who left. Those words gave me power, but they also made me hard. Every promise born from pain carries danger. It can help you survive, but it can also teach you to close your heart. At that time, I did not understand that. I thought strength meant needing no one. I thought strength meant never crying. I thought strength meant proving everyone wrong. I thought strength meant building walls so high that no one could reach the wounded child inside me. But later, life would teach me another kind of strength. The strength to forgive, the strength to listen, the strength to accept repentance. The strength to love someone who once failed you. I did not know that strength yet. In episode 9, I only knew the strength of survival, the strength of clenched teeth, the strength of hidden tears, the strength of silent vows, the strength of a child saying, I will rise, because falling is not an option. That kind of strength kept me alive, but it did not make me whole. Still, I needed it. Then, a child in pain needs something to hold. Some children hold toys, some hold memories, some hold prayers, some hold the hand of someone who loves them. I held a promise, and because I held it tightly, I began to change again. I became more serious. I listened when adults spoke about work, money, respect, and success. I paid attention to what people admired. I noticed how quickly the world respected those who had something to offer. I noticed how differently people spoke to those who had position. I noticed that weakness attracted pity, but achievement attracted honor. I did not want pity anymore. I wanted honor. Not because I was proud, because pity had made me feel exposed. Pity reminded me that something was missing. Honor, I believed, would cover the wound. So I chased the idea of becoming someone important, someone useful, someone strong, someone people would not dare to mistreat. But even that dream came from a child's misunderstanding. Honor can cover shame in public, but it cannot heal a private wound. Success can lift a person high, but it cannot automatically repair what was broken inside. A great building can rise in the city, but if the heart remains wounded, the person standing inside it may still feel homeless. I would learn that much later. For now, the dream of success was enough to keep me moving, and maybe God allowed it that way. Maybe some dreams begin imperfectly, but become purified over time. Maybe a dream born from pain can later become a mission born from love. Maybe the edifice I first imagined as proof against my pain would one day become a symbol of forgiveness, but I could not see that yet. I only saw the next day, the next task, the next humiliation to survive, the next night to endure. The next time I would tell myself, this is not forever. One evening, after a day that had been harder than usual, I found myself alone again. The sky was becoming dark. The world outside was quiet, but my heart was not. I thought about my brother. I thought about how angry he had become. I thought about my mother. I thought about how much she had sacrificed. I thought about the people whose hands had hurt me. And then I thought about my father, the absent man, the unanswered question, the one I blamed. For a moment, I imagined him standing in front of me. Not as he truly was, because I still did not know him, but as a shadow, a shape made from stories, silence, and pain. In my imagination, I spoke to him. I told him he had left me. I told him I had suffered. I told him I had needed him. I told him I was tired of waiting. Then I made the promise again. I will become someone without you. The words felt powerful, but after I said them inside myself, I felt sadness too. Because the promise sounded like victory, but it also sounded like goodbye. And a child should not have to say goodbye to a living father he has never truly known. But that was what I was trying to do. I was trying to bury my need before it buried me. I was trying to kill hope, before hope humiliated me again. I was trying to become strong enough to survive the possibility that he would never come. That night, the promise became deeper. It was no longer only about proving him wrong. It was about protecting myself. I promised that I would not let his absence destroy me. I promised that I would not let other people's mistreatment define me. And I promised that I would not let my brother's anger become the only language of our family. I promised that I would not let my mother's sacrifices be wasted. I promised that one day, somehow, I would build a life that made sense of the pain. I did not know how, but I promised. And that promise became a seed. It was planted in wounded soil. It was watered by tears I did not show. It was warmed by anger I did not speak. It grew slowly, quietly, secretly. Years later, that seed would become discipline, then ambition, then vision, then the great edifice of the city. But at that time, it was only a child's vow made in loneliness, a vow made under the weight of fatherlessness, a vow made after growing too early, a vow made because the world had taught me that no one was coming. So I decided I would come for myself. That is what episode 9 was in my life. The moment I stopped only asking where my father was, the moment I began asking who I would become without him. It was a dangerous question, but it was also necessary, because sometimes, before forgiveness can come, survival must come first. Before a child can accept a repentant father, he must first live long enough to see him return. Before love can rebuild what was broken, the broken child must keep breathing. My promise helped me breathe. It helped me stand. It helped me endure, but it also built a wall my father would one day have to face. Because when he returned, he would not find the same child who once waited innocently. He would find a son who had made promises in pain, a son who had learned to survive without him, a son who had trained himself not to need him, a son whose heart still wanted him, but whose pride refused to admit it. that would make forgiveness difficult. Because repentance would not only have to answer my suffering, it would have to reach the child who had promised never to need his father again. But that day was still far away. For now, I was still young, still under another person's roof, still careful, still quiet, still carrying my brother's anger beside my own hidden longing, still thinking of my mother's tiredness, still hearing the echo of hands that hurt, still blaming my father for the childhood I had lost too early. But now I had something more, a promise, a private promise, a painful promise, a promise that one day I would rise. One day I would build. One day I would become strong. One day I would no longer be only the child whose father left. And even if my father never came back, my life would not end in the place where his absence left me.